There's my notice that we're recording the event. And we would like, Coalition for Clean Air would like to thank the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California for sponsoring today's Clean Air conversation. We can't do this without your support, and thank you so much for sponsoring the event. And now for a bit of background about Coalition for Clean Air. Karen, can we run that?
Yeah. When the Coalition for Clean Air was founded in 1971, Californians breathed some of the smoggiest air in the world. So we got to work. We led the charge for California's smog check program for passenger vehicles, a program that reduces 100 tons of automobile pollution every day. We cleaned up school buses so that kids don't get sick. We got the toxic chemical perk out of dry cleaning. And in 2019, we followed up with SB 210, a similar smog check program for heavy duty freight, which will result in emissions reductions equivalent to taking hundreds of thousands of trucks off California roads. But we're not resting on our laurels. With your help, we're fighting to eliminate diesel use in California, to bring millions of Californians together to clear the air each California Clean Air Day, to decarbonize our economy and meet our climate goals, and to deliver healthy air to all Californians in the next decade.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Karen, for that. I'm going to just introduce our speakers and our panelists, and then we'll go to our speaker and our moderator. So with us today on our panel are California State Senator Fran Pavley, Environmental Policy Director at the University of Southern California Schwarzenegger Institute, Adel Hagekhalil, General Manager and CEO of Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, Malinda Stalvey, Senior Environmental Specialist with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, and the one and only Felicia Marcus, the William C. Landreth Visiting Fellow at Stanford University and a founding member of the Water Policy Group and a founding member of so many other things, former EPA Region 9 Administrator. And they're going to come up as soon as Adel and Malinda get a chance to speak a bit. Adel Hagekhalil, General Manager and CEO, Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, the largest wholesale drinking water agency in the country. Adel was appointed to lead MWD last June, and he came from the city of Los Angeles, where he worked for 31 years, ending his career as General Manager and Executive Director of the City of Los Angeles' Bureau of Street Services, recently renamed Streets LA. And it's a pleasure to have you here, Adel. So why don't you go ahead and take it away? Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. It's an honor to be with you today and to be with the Coalition for Clean Air. Great friends here and colleagues. And I want to just say thank you. Great to see Brian. And I know Martin is with me here, and Martin used to be with you in the Coalition for Clean Air. And I think we all share the same thing. I think we all share, and there's something that I tell people all the time. What we do every day is not about infrastructure, it's not about anything, it's about people. And if we forget it's about people, we forget how important our job that we do every single day. And I take that to heart. It doesn't matter whether it's shade, shelter, air quality, water supply, the environment, equity, all that. That's what we do here. And I want to make sure that we all share the same thing. It's about enhancing and making the quality of life for everyone better. And I think that's what you have. That's what in Metropolitan, that's what I embraced. And we have a great organization that has worked for almost 100 years managing water in Southern California and what allowed Southern California to be what it is today. We've done some great work. We have a huge challenge ahead of us. We're facing a new reality, the new normal. Basically, it's the climate change is the new normal we're dealing with. We're seeing hotter and drier days every single day. And what we need to do is start thinking about the future, the next 100 years, and how we do it through to make sure that we're resilient to the changing climate, but also we're adapting to it. And also we are helping protect the environment, protect the people, and really provide new water in a holistic way. And I talk about a Mulholland moment that we have in our future. 100 years ago, Mulholland brought the water through in the LA aqueduct, and he said, here you go, take it. And our goal right now is to take care of it. As our mayor always says, Mayor Garcetti, is here it is, conserve it, take care of it. And to me, water does not stand alone. Water is part of this collective. And I talk about integration, and a lot of people heard me talk about really our future is anchored in the 3 I's that I talk about: the integration, innovation, and inclusion. And integration is the holistic solutions that we develop. Something came to mind last week. I traveled, actually before Thanksgiving, I traveled to Imperial Irrigation District. And I did a trip to meet with them and talk to them about the future. And, the water management in the Imperial Irrigation District and conservation of what we're doing has a direct impact on water quality and air quality. Seeing what's happening around the Salton Sea. And that's because we were doing something in conservation, which is critical and important, but it has its impacts on the quality of life for people around that area. So to me, I really advocate that when we do something, let's make sure that it's holistic, is helping everyone, and we're not causing an impact. So the future of our water is going to be also doing it in where we are carbon neutral in the future, reducing our greenhouse gases, uplifting communities, creating wealth in communities, creating jobs, innovation, thinking outside the box, thinking differently of how we provide water, how we reduce evaporation, how we create renewable energy through solar panels. Maybe there's a way we can combine it. And inclusion, including everyone in the discussion. It's not just about us doing it, it's about engaging the tribes, the environmental communities, the business leaders, the people that are addressing water quality, air quality, and just working together. And I believe in making the tent bigger to move us forward. We've made huge investments in our efforts, and you'll hear today from Malinda about our climate action plan. But one thing that I want to do in Metropolitan is elevate the climate action to a higher level. So I'm creating a executive office in my reporting to me directly, that's going to be run by Chief Resiliency and Climate Action Officer, Innovation Officer. That basically, the notice should be out for the position this week. And we're going to be really elevating everything we do and to look at it within the lens of resiliency, within the lens of climate action and innovation, and to really bring us into a place where we're really not only addressing the water future, but also addressing the environmental future, the public health future, because everything we do has a benefit and an impact. So we want to make sure that we minimize the impact, but also add benefit. And everything we are doing is doing that way. So we've done a lot of work on energy storage and solar power, and our hydropower that comes from Lake Mead is critical to us. And we're working really hard right now. You hear a lot of discussion over next month on this 500+ plan, where we're partnering with Southern Nevada, Arizona, and us and the Bureau of Reclamation on putting money in to really add more water in Lake Mead, 500,000 acre-feet a year over the next 2 years. And that would help generate more hydropower, clean power that has been reduced because of low levels that we have in Lake Mead. So we're investing a lot. At the same time, we're investing in conservation, investing in addressing the issues on leaky pipes. We're working hard on how we can work with underserved communities to ensure that the water quality through PFAS and groundwater is preserved, because I believe strongly that we need to preserve every groundwater basin we have. And also what we need to do is use the groundwater basins we have in this region for storage, for regional storage. The future is about creating more local water supply here and protecting our interest across the region, but we need more storage because rain will come to us in patterns that we're not ready for. And we need to make sure that we store and use our basins, our groundwater basins, our surface reservoirs, and everything we can do to hold the water when we have it, so we can use it when we need it, like we're dealing with right now with this drought that we're seeing. We also have worked really hard on our efforts in the Delta, the Bay Delta and the islands that we have there, and really dealing with the issues of how we grow crops. So we partnered with NGOs, universities, and looking for the efforts we can work on the Sacramento and San Joaquin Delta, and how we can implement efforts to sequester carbon. And what we're looking for is new ways to cultivate and irrigate, and we're looking at changing the way we cultivate, corn and replace that with rice. And because what we're trying to do is minimize the amount of earth moving and the amount of replacing. If we can get something that can grow without having to be removed and replanted again, that's something that's important. So we're working really hard on this effort. I'm going to the Delta to meet with the community there, the enviros and the partners in the area, to really have a good discussion, because we believe strongly that we can do a lot more there to really reduce the greenhouse gases, which we estimate can be as much as 200,000 metric tons a year of CO2, which is equivalent to more than 90% reduction in our overall carbon footprint. So we can do a lot more, but I think the only way we can do it is to do it together. We are working through a partnership on conservation, reuse, recycling. We're working hard with our partners in LA County Sanitation and the City of Los Angeles on more recycling of every drop that we have. We need to think differently, innovate, and try to really find ways to reduce the distance of traveled water. So we're looking at decentralized systems, more stormwater capture and infiltration. And that's the future for us. It's not about importing water, it's providing water, but providing water in a holistic, integrated, clean way that uplifts people, protects the environment, and protects clean air. And that's the commitment from Metropolitan. So today you'll hear from Malinda about our efforts in the Climate Action Plan, which I'm very proud of her efforts and the work she's done. But that's a start. That's a dynamic process. And I believe that we need to continue adapting and working on how we work on our water future to reduce our water footprint, but also reduce our carbon footprint at the same time. And that only can be done through working together, through investments from the state. I think the state should invest more money in Southern California when it comes to water efforts, but also carbon sequestration. The only way we can do it is when we're collaborating, and we need an integrated solution for the entire state of California. I'm glad the senator is with us here, and I'm proud of the work she has done. But we need to do it together. And most of the time, I feel we're fighting each other. And I think what we need to do is just take that and start, make the tents bigger, bring everybody in. And I think there's an opportunity for us to really transform the future, create a future for all of us for the next 100 years that we can be proud of, that is safe, healthy, resilient, reliable for everyone. And that's the future I bring. That's who I am. I've done that in every place I went to. And I'm so proud that I was able to come and talk to you at the Coalition for Clean Air and commit my partnership with you and with the future that we will create together. Thank you. Malinda, you want to take it over?
Sure. Thank you, everybody, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm actually honored to be in the presence of such esteemed members and guests here today, and to have this opportunity to share about our climate action plan. As Adel mentioned, it's a holistic approach, and just the fact that we're being here today working with the Clean Air Coalition is evidence of the fact that people are starting to see this as a holistic approach for us to be able to combat some of these issues and some of the problems facing us. So Metropolitan Water District was mentioned, is one of the largest, is the largest wholesale water provider in the country. We deliver more than 1.5 billion gallons of water daily through our distribution system to our member agencies, who serve nearly 19 million people across a 5,200 square mile service area in Southern California. Metropolitan ensures its water reliability by consistently planning for the future. Some of our more recent planning documents include the Climate Action and Energy Sustainability Plans, which I'll talk about briefly, and our Integrated Resources Plan, which is currently being updated, as well as numerous other planning documents that guide our infrastructure investments and conservation actions that will continue to provide a reliable supply of water to Southern California for years to come. Almost 3 years ago, Metropolitan's Board of Directors approved the preparation of a climate action plan. The draft cap is currently out for public review. It is a landmark document for Metropolitan, as it sets the stage for Metropolitan to support the governor's goal of carbon neutrality by the year 2045. The plan contains a complete greenhouse gas emissions inventory, a forecast of projected future emissions based on forecasted water scenarios, and a number of emissions reductions measures that will help Metropolitan to achieve its goal. It also includes a carbon budget tracking method to ensure compliance with the plan. One of the most difficult hurdles for developing a successful climate action plan was finding a way to measure progress towards achieving our GHG reduction goals in spite of our varying emissions over time. The dark blue area shows Metropolitan's actual emissions over time. As you can see, our emissions are highly variable. Metropolitan's variable emissions are closely tied to where our water is sourced. Higher emissions years generally correspond to drought years where there's been higher than average pumping along the Colorado River Aqueduct. In fact, 87 to 88% of Metropolitan's annual emissions are from the pumping and treatment of water. This differs significantly from cities and counties whose emissions generally run around 85% from transportation, and therefore requires a very different approach for tracking and reducing emissions. Metropolitan's carbon budget is shown here. The light blue area represents Metropolitan's carbon budget. What we did is we took our emissions from 1990 and drew a straight line down from 1990 to 2045 to show an incremental reduction in emissions over time. We decided to start our line, though the line started in 1990, we chose 2005 as our starting place for the budget because we started reporting our emissions to the climate registry in 2005. So we have accurate emissions calculations from that date. So we summed the area under the curve from 2005 through 2045 for a total emissions budget. As shown, our emissions budget from 2005 to 2020 is just under 9 million metric tons of CO2e. So far, we've used 53% of that budget. However, every year the budget decreases, so Metropolitan must continue to implement GHG reduction measures to achieve its goal of carbon neutrality by 2045. Metropolitan's Energy Sustainability Plan is closely tied to the Climate Action Plan. It identifies a number of investment opportunities, which not only provide GHG reductions, but also energy and operational reliability, while maintaining the operational flexibility necessary to meet changing climatic conditions. Some of our recent actions are the development of 130 megawatts of small hydropower, 5.5 megawatts of solar, and 3 megawatts of battery energy storage systems, and a new 50-year agreement for low-cost hydropower from Hoover Dam. Metropolitan ensures a reliable supply of water to the region by diversifying its water portfolio, investing over $800 million since 1990 in conservation programs to reduce water consumption, which translates to less energy used to transport water and less greenhouse gas emissions. Metropolitan also invests in a number of banking and storage programs that allow us to store water in wet years and take the water during drought years. Metropolitan has also needed to respond to hydrologic variability by reimagining its infrastructure capabilities. For example, during the recent drought, Metropolitan retooled our conveyance and distribution system to allow water to be pumped from different regions to provide water to areas that were stressed by drought. Metropolitan increased its storage capacity and provided emergency storage through the construction of Diamond Valley Lake, and is preparing for the future by studying a regional recycle water program that will treat and reuse water locally. Earlier, I mentioned conservation. Our over $800 million in investments into conservation actions have reduced per capita water use and reduced water consumption in the area in spite of a population increase of nearly 3.5 million people since 1990. The amount of water saved from conservation amounts to 1.5 million acre feet, which is more than the average of the water we receive from the State Water Project every year. In addition to conservation programs, our local resource program provides funding for local water projects like small desal. Our strategy includes continuing these important projects that expand water savings and local resource programs, which will in turn reduce energy and greenhouse gas emissions. Metropolitan is also investigating sustainable agriculture practices, as Adel mentioned, and opportunities for carbon sequestration and carbon capture in the Delta region. All of these actions have been identified in our climate action plan as opportunities to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Metropolitan's climate action plan is currently out for public review now through January 7th of 2022. A public engagement webinar is scheduled for this Wednesday, December 1st at 10 a.m. You can register for the webinar and view the CAP at the links provided here. And for those interested in business opportunities with Metropolitan, I've included our business outreach contact information. I really appreciate the opportunity to present some of our information on the climate action plan and hope to hear from some of you with comments on the plan. And if you wouldn't mind, Brian, putting the slide back up again when the panel discussion is over so people can have access, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you both for that really informative and inspiring set of talks. I have to say, I'm completely honored to be here, not only because it's the coalition's 50th anniversary, which kind of makes me feel old as a former board member, but old in a good way. Thrilled that we're all still here and thrilled that we're doing such a great job. Also to be a part of this panel with this awesome group of individuals doing extraordinary work. Malinda, I don't know as well as I know Adel, who I've known for decades and adore, as well as Senator Pavley, who's one of my heroes as well. So again, thank you, Coalition, for allowing me to join you today. I do have to say, the issue of water and energy and climate and the fact that it's dealt with in separate silos of practice is one of the saddest and most unfortunate things out there, something I've been working on in my work at Stanford. And I'm just thrilled to see folks coming together to try and address them together, because we address them separately because of the professional silos we've developed. And we have to overcome those to get back to things we knew just a short 100 years ago, but seemingly have forgotten. So thank you for your pioneering work. And I can't imagine a better team to be moving forward on this. It's my particular honor to bring in Senator Pavley, though, for the first question, who's been a pioneer and a leader on both water and energy and on climate in California and across the world. So we have a global celebrity in our own midst. So Senator Pavley, you know, you've been a leader in both of these worlds. What do you see as the most important intersection of water, energy, climate, and air pollution? I mean, what would you have moved to have done had you not been term limited? What was next on your list after AB 32, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and so many other things?
Well, thank you, Felicia, for that introduction. And thank you, Coalition for Clean Air, for inviting me here today to speak to you for a few minutes, and welcome an ongoing opportunity if I can assist in any way. I get to work on energy and water issues through the Schwarzenegger Institute. And I really enjoy being able to just focus on the policy side and not that pesky running for office side, because I was never very good at that.
I'd say good enough.
Good enough. I would, you know why? Because people actually supported what I was working on. Isn't that a luxury? And so I didn't have to second guess on what my priorities should be. And I had some very good advice. Former Senator Sheila Kuehl, now Supervisor Sheila Kuehl, told me when I got to the legislature 20 years ago, not to focus on too many things, pick 2 or 3 things I'm passionate about, stick to them, make a difference. And so I was on the water committee all 14 years. I was on the energy committee, stayed with climate, air pollution, because that's my background, San Fernando Valley, born and raised in the 50s and 60s. I can speak to that any day. And so it's been great to be able to work in things that I care about. So thank you to all of you. And Joe, just a shout out, you're talking about your 50th anniversary. Well, I think one of the first bills Coalition for Clean Air ever sponsored that I'm aware of in Sacramento was 20 years ago this year. It was introduction of what I thought was a simple little reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the tailpipe of vehicles bill. Didn't realize you took on all the automakers, the oil companies and everyone else. But did you know, here's a trivia thing, Coalition of Clean Air was the first sponsor of my bill, Tim Carmichael, along with Blue Water Network, a really small—
Blue Water Action, Blue Water Network, one of the
Yeah,
two.
Blue Water Action, yeah, from San Francisco, also small. And I think because I was a freshman legislator and didn't know what I was going to be up against, and the bigger environmental groups were smart enough to stay out of this, we sort of stepped into it and built a coalition second to none, and we're successful. So thank you, Coalition for Clean Air. And then one last shout out, and I know I'm taking up too much time on this, but my water district, I'm very proud of, Las Virgenes Municipal Water District. They have their wastewater treatment plant off the grid, solar panels galore, and with storage. So when we have wildfires, we still can pump water and have that available for fighting things. And wastewater treatment continues. We're resilient with that. They now have a model direct potable reuse station. We're getting ready for implementing that. We've had recycled water for over 25 years here for all the landscaping on the freeways, every park, every median, and everything else. So I think from my perspective, the energy and water nexus was clear. And you're right, Felicia. We can do so much more in this area. And so one of my bigger disappointments is that we're not really focusing on that like we should in the scoping plan, the 2022 scoping plan. That's how we can reach our 2030 objectives. And some of the incentives and budget surplus could be for accelerating that investment in long-term storage, renewable energy, using renewable energy for reuse and desal, and the list goes on and on. There is so much work to do. And even the Pacific Institute and Next 10 are doing webinars on that link between water and energy. And so my last bill in office was SB 1425, was the Water Energy Nexus bill, and Metropolitan Water District was one of the earliest supporters, a founding member. We now have only over 40 members, or about 40 members, between some universities and water districts and large water users, really quite exciting. So there is a registry where you can measure the carbon embedded in the movement treating and heating of water. So to get back to your question, we have a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of spaces to work in. And I'm glad to see so many of you are in this mix, and climate action plans, whether it's through the Metropolitan Water District or individual cities, breaking down these silos and working together. There's a lot to can be achieved. We know it's estimated 18 to 20% of all the energy we use is the movement, treating, and heating of water. we can reduce that through water conservation or reduce pumping, and the list goes on and on. There's a variety of lists. So there's a lot of work to be done. And if I was in office today, to get back to the beginning of your question, really focusing on meeting our 2030 targets. I authored SB 32 after AB 32. And
right.
we're not, Adel, you mentioned this, we may not meet those targets. And I think one reason is we're missing some opportunities, whether it's on acceleration diesel trucks, which is an important issue, or whether it's water energy conservation, which certainly is timely now with the drought and everything. And does this all tie into air quality? Absolutely.
That's great. That's great. As expected. Well, there are some questions coming in the chat. I want to encourage people to add their questions to the chat and try and focus them on the water energy nexus if you can. There is a nexus, even if you don't say so. So it's just a reminder, because we don't have conversations about this all that often in a mixed conversation. And that's why I was glad you mentioned the Pacific Institute Next 10 work, because I thought it was unusually accessible for a document in that space. So I advise everybody to Google just water energy and Pacific Institute or Next 10, and you'll find it. But I want to open it up also to Malinda and Adel, as well as again to Senator Pavley. The energy world's long been in the lead in addressing climate change, while the water world is the bleeding edge that'll feel the effects first, whether in sea level rise, droughts, or floods. What's the most important thing the water community can do to rise to the climate change challenge in both mitigating climate change and in leading adaptation efforts? Sorry.
To me, it's there's that one word I use, and it's one water, but maybe we should change that word to say just purely one. It doesn't matter, right? It's for me, it's quickly how we diversify our water portfolio, more local water resources, protecting the environment, creating a balance between what we're doing for our urban use with ag and with the environment, funding conservation at a different level. To me, there's things that we can do more to reduce our consumption, but I'm proud of what we've done. I'll tell you, 20 years ago, we estimated the amount of imported water we need in Southern California was close to 3.2 million acre feet a year.
Mm-hmm.
This budget year coming in, we're estimating that we're going to be around 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
So just imagine if we had to come up with 3.2 million acre feet of water during this condition, what would have happened? So we have done a great job in conservation. I want to say to Southern California, the good thing about Southern California, we've done something good, but we need to do more. We're not saying that, but I want to be sure that we acknowledge the amount of work that has been done, whether it's Orange County doing the amount of work of groundwater recharge and leading the way, whether the work that's been done in Eastern and Western and in LA, in Las Virgin, as you heard the senator talk about it. We've done more, but we need to do more. There's opportunities on leaky pipes. So Metropolitan now is putting more money in pilot programs to address underserved communities in different ways, protecting our groundwater basins, but really changing the game on that one. And the last thing is investing in clean energy, whether it's hydropower or solar. I think there's an opportunities there that we can do that while getting benefit, like evaporation of our water. Maybe there's a way we can cover it with solar panels. I know operational there's questions, but we can do stuff. So this whole idea of really start thinking outside the box and how we can partner with everyone to innovate, but also build multi-benefit solutions. So to me, it's the biggest thing we can do now is forget about just planning for one thing. We need to plan and implement for more. Water, energy, air quality, and people, creating jobs. So to me, we're pushing right now on making sure that we have water for the future, but also how we prepare for when we have rain and how we're going to be able to capture it and store it to use it. And can we generate energy during that process and think differently about it? So I'm proud of the work we've done, but more needs to be done. We only can do it together.
That's great. And it's fun too, isn't it? It's way more fun. Great. Malinda, do you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Felicia. There's a number of different areas that we're working in, like Adel had mentioned, with the investing in energy reliability and infrastructure, but there's some other things that we're working on, which somebody asked about transitioning our fleet. And that's a big thing we're working on right now. We have a pilot program, a scoping program going on where we're looking at what kinds of technology is available. And then what will meet our needs, because we have such a varying area where we work. I mean, much of it's an urban environment, but a lot of our facilities are in the desert region where temperatures can exceed 120 degrees during the summer months. So finding technology that will be able to support the vehicles and the equipment that we need to be able to run the aqueduct while still making sure that we don't strand vehicles and things is really important to meeting our goals, increasing the money that we can for conservation programs, and then looking at smaller programs. One of the things we're looking at is the potential for use of variable speed pumps so that we can take advantage. Our pumps out in the desert region, they're very large pumps. They take a tremendous amount of energy to ramp them up. It takes a long time to do that, and then to ramp them back down again. But we're looking at what's the possibility of maybe replacing some of those pumps with variable speed, which would allow us to ramp up quickly, take advantage of power when it's green or when it's mostly clean energy power, and then store that power and then discharge it at night. So there's a number of different avenues that Metropolitan's looking at. It's not just like conservation or power, but there's a number of avenues. We see this as a holistic approach that's going to take a little bit of everything in order for us to be able to meet our goals and the goals.
Malinda, you're talking about also about in system generation. Like every time, like we're using the Diamond Valley Lake, and a lot of people don't know, when we pumped water in, we use the system to, as we are using some of that storage, we're generating power with it. So anytime that we bring water in and we take water out, we're trying to make sure that we are capturing and generating more water, more energy in the system. So it's a lot of ideas, but we have implemented some stuff in Lake Matthews, in Diamond Valley Lake, and others. We're gonna keep trying to do everything we can to create more clean energy and renewable power.
Well, that's great. I was going to do a follow-up on that before turning to Senator Pavley for additional thoughts on sort of the coolest thing she's seen in having access to the sort of the technological revolution that's happening in sensing and other things. When you talk about generating power, are you talking traditional hydro, or are you looking at the new inline hydro in terms of putting turbines within your pumping systems to generate power, since there's some fish-friendly ones and others coming online? And then the second question, since you mentioned looking at solar anew, I think there's a lot of conventional wisdom looking at a single issue. For example, looking at solar over all of DWR's lines or all of Met's lines and just assessing it on energy, as opposed to looking at the combination of energy and evaporative in localized context, which is now sort of taking off with some demonstration projects that DWR is funding. I was curious as to whether you were following that as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, on the last one, we're following the discussions on covering the canals and what needs to be done. But also the biggest thing is to create, the panels, how you connect to the system, but also can we use it? So that's something that's being discussed as part of our new idea of innovation. I'm talking to a lot of folks on things that we can do. I'm really interested in also performance-based solutions where we're not taking the risk, but if you have an idea, you're willing to put your money on the table to show us what needs to be done. I want to change the game. So I'm not going to put my ratepayers' money on the table. If you have an idea, you're willing to put your money in, and we'll pay you based on performance. Let's think about it. So to me, that's an idea I want to kind of really look at, how we bring innovation in a different way where we're minimizing risk to the ratepayers. So I'm going to invite people to come up with ideas, and there'll be a process that we'll vet here more and more. But also inline generation is a big thing for us. So I saw we have that here in some of our storage locations, but there's more that we can do. And we're thinking that as part of everything we're doing for the future. How we take water in the future as we generate our future recyclable water program down in Carson. If we pump that water up into a reservoir, if we use it, is there a way we can bring it around to Orange County and to generate energy as you bring it around? All that needs to be added to the thinking, the planning, and we cannot just have one focused planning. It has to be multiple thinking, and flood control, stormwater capture, adding it to reservoirs as part of what we do in pumping, decentralized treatment systems. Like, is there a way we can really find a sewer that we can put a 5 MGD decentralized plant where it's close to the recharge and reuse, and create, maybe solar panels to operate it, and you have this multi-benefit solution. So all these are on the table, but we're going to ask people to be partners with us, and we're going to be thinking outside the box.
That's great. That's great. Melinda, do you want to add anything before I turn to Senator Pavley?
No, I think Adel covered that one.
So
really
quite
well.
good. It was really
Yes.
good. Senator Pavley, other observations on the water energy nexus and technology opportunities?
This is a great discussion. I think we should just all sit down for a week together and figure this out. But this is a good year, actually, for one-time investment of dollars. If there's some technology acceleration that needs to be done to get some breakthrough decisions. And I'm thinking the combination of the drought and our concern about reducing greenhouse gas emissions and other kinds of climate and air pollutants, this, don't let a good crisis go to waste, so to speak. But I come back to, it's renewable energy is so much a part of this solution, whether you're transporting water or pumping water, or we know the biggest use of energy is going to be the reuse of water in the future. So whether it's requiring that all desal plants operate on renewable energy or not. How about all those groundwater basins? We've got 125 of our 515 basins severely overdrafted. We need to replenish that groundwater supply, probably not from all that surplus rain, or we can hope, but from reusing water and then pumping it in. That all has to be tied into renewable energy. Pumped hydro's been discussed a lot as part of the solution. I think, Felicia, if that was the same thing you were talking about, but that concept of reusing water over and over again in a productive way. So there are a lot of overlapping issues. And I was just struck with what you're thinking. I'm sitting on this panel today, but I'm moderating a panel on Thursday for New Energy Nexus with someone in the Department of Energy and someone else who's the lead financial and climate person for Governor Newsom, who used to be with the Energy Foundation. And we're operating in separate silos. And that's, so maybe there's, a space in this to put the agencies back together, because right now we're having a hard time in Sacramento getting water back into the discussion in the Air Resources Board.
That's so interesting.
And Fran, I think one idea that I've pushed hard during the Biden campaign was, and maybe something we should learn is that we give priority to funding for projects that are multi-benefit, that include A, B, C, D. So single source, single solution should not be receiving grants and money or funding from the state or the federal government. It should be, if you're doing multi-benefits like air quality, renewable energy, water supply, resiliency, jobs for people, training, workforce, all that stuff, we need to force it. Otherwise, people, the easy way is to stay in your silo, right? That's the easy solution. But we need to force people to kind of get out of their shell, and I think that should be a state and a federal government push. We should be pushing ourselves. I'm going to be pushing, like you have been pushing for this. But I think at the state level and the federal level, all that money should come together and say, if you're doing multi-benefit, you should get a priority on somebody else.
And a good place to do that may be one of the areas where I wasn't successful is trying to expand what the Strategic Growth Council does for urban infill or apartments and those kind of multi-dwelling units to be more either energy efficient, or why don't they have the electric heat pumps instead of the other, would reduce their energy bills, reduce their water use, save them money. People pay a disproportionate high share of their income on energy and water indirectly through their apartment rents and things. That would be a big multi-benefit use, dealing with housing as well as water, energy, and air pollution, because so much of this is in those same communities.
You know what, that's music to my ears. Adel may remember we tried to do that in the city of LA in the early 90s and got completely pummeled. But times have changed and people have progressed. And I think there's maybe an opportunity now that I'm seeing also in the arena of climate. I just finished a paper on this in climate change, where internationally, more at the national level, and certainly in its beginning stages in California and in baby steps in Colorado and New Mexico, folks are thinking about their climate policies more holistically, and not just energy and renewables, which are absolutely essential, and pollution controls, but integrating nature in a way that provides multiple benefits for climate mitigation and adaptation, as well as the water benefits we need. But it's very complicated for some people. And I think it scares them, but it is the way to go. I want to make sure we move to some of the audience questions before we close. We don't have a lot of them, but they're in, these are usually questions I get asked. So it's a question of whether you all have thoughts on them. One from Bianca Lopez is a bit about whether we should put a limit on cultivation of crops that use an awful lot of water to do crops for export. You've all heard me talk about this, maybe surprised at my view of it, but I'd be curious as to what you think about it. I'm going to put the other one up too, because it's also about agriculture. And so you can opine as you like, which is a question about research, but I think the issue can be more general about how animal agriculture is impacting climate change, since it does create a tremendous percentage of greenhouse gas, and regenerative agriculture has promise for sequestration and other mitigation benefits. So if you can just opine on the role of agriculture in this water energy nexus, I think that would be helpful to some of our viewers.
I mean, to me, ag use for water in California is one that cannot be ignored. There's a value to ag, but also we need to make sure that we provide new tools and new ideas, use science data. And I know a lot of farmers are doing that, but more needs to be done. The question is how we help reduce the water consumption while you sustain the irrigation, because it's not just about the product, it's about the people that farm and the jobs. And I was in Palo Verde Irrigation District 2 weeks ago, and I spent time with them. You know, they're suffering. The community suffers when you're not, you know, we're partnering with them on conservation and fouling, but also they're hit hard with unemployment, right? It's about 40% unemployment in that region. So my goal is, how can we help them help us? Is there new tools that we can do? Can we do training, job creation? Can we bring technology to ensure that we're measuring, we're not just flooding fields for irrigation, we'd rather measuring the needs and being smart how we do it. To me, there's a lot of, I mean, I have a huge interest in their success, because that partnership with the ag community is important for all of us. Because it's not just about agriculture product, it's about the people that work. And I can't forget about the people that farm and collect and pick up the stuff. So I think we can work together. Let's use science. Let's train people. One thing is, we have this advanced agriculture tools like machines to harvest and do stuff using computer technology, but the workers do not know how to use it, right? And I'm saying what we need to do is train and uplift people, get them to know more about water management, train them and give them the tools and, and how we can really get them to see things more than just physical, right? And I think we can do that. And we talked about in Palo Verde, we've invested, about $6 million in community benefit program. And in my trip 2 weeks ago with my board, there's some ideas we can do about, a apprenticeship program training, to train them to do the right thing, whether it's in the ag work or in construction as a whole or in machinery. They all go together, because my thing is we cannot forget the people in this formula. So this is something that's on my plate. As we are doing things for conservation, we don't forget about how we take care of the people.
I haven't paid attention to the time as well as I should. I want to give Senator Pavley a chance to comment on that. And then I am going to hand it over to Chris Chavez to talk about the outlook for the Coalition for Clean Air. This went way too fast and it was really great. So Senator Pavley, you get the final word of the panel.
Well, staying on the agricultural theme for just a moment, and the discussion is a difficult one, and with the drought, not a lot of surface water. There is a Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. I authored that bill. It's not being implemented fast enough. Some people are not even meeting the criteria set out by the State Water Board, who could come in and regulate it for them. But part of the challenge has been, because of the drought, the amount of year-round water-intensive crops that are being grown. That has changed from an area, of fallowing fields and grazing cattle, like on Long Highway 5 and others, and now we have year-round water-intensive crops. And the biggest challenge, speaking of people, yes, the people who are working hard in the fields and generating not only income, but food for, frankly, the globe, is the amount of water that the state taxpayers are hauling into rural communities all over the state, because lower income people can't pump deep enough to access the remaining groundwater. It's a race to the bottom. And it's really a challenging trade-off. So the other recent water intensive crop that's now part of the mix is cannabis. That's also using up a lot of the water supply, perhaps in those severely overdrafted basins. So there may be a need for some limitation or some management guidance in those overdrafted basins relating to agriculture.
I think you may be right. And it is a mixed picture. You have some that are hurting and some that are hurting others. So it's not a uniform in ag. There's plenty of farmers hurting, and there are some that are making off like bandits. So it's a challenging arena. Well, with that, my apologies for going long. I'll chart it up to enthusiasm for our speakers, and let me turn it back to Chris or Brian or Joe, whoever takes it from here. Thank you for letting us all join you.
Are you there, Chris?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you to our speakers today. That was a great discussion. It's always good to hear such an incredible brain trust in terms of energy, environmental, water policy that we have here today. So my name is Chris Chavez. I'm Deputy Policy Director at Coalition for Clean Air, and actually a former staff member of Senator Pavley's back in from 2012 to 2016 up in Sacramento. So it's also good to see my former boss here. 2021 was really an eventful year for air quality. In terms of accomplishments, the rules for the heavy duty inspection program, or the smog check program, are coming up in December. South Coast AQMD passed the warehouse indirect source rule, and as well as a new rule on oil refineries. These two protections, though not perfect, will lead to some of the largest emission reductions seen in decades. There's a new rule in the San Joaquin Valley that will begin the process of phasing out agricultural burning, and both the new law and CARB regulations that will transition us away from gas-powered small engines, such as those powering lawn care equipment, as they're extremely polluting. We continue to advocate for reducing pollution in passenger vehicles, as well as pushing California's transportation agencies towards prioritizing the reduction of harmful emissions from traffic capacity expansion projects. Yet much work remains. California is still home to some of the dirtiest air in the nation, and multiple air basins are on track to fail meeting national and state air quality standards. So looking ahead to 2022, our priorities include following up on 2021's massive investments in clean transportation at the state level, with additional investments that prioritize equity, including both in terms of vehicles as well as infrastructure. This includes reauthorizing AB8, which I know was important to Senator Pavley back then, which would renew many of California's transportation funding streams. We're also pushing for a state implementation plan, or SIP, that puts California on the course to healthy air, meaning that we're able to meet air quality standards. We're also looking at continuing our work to drastically cut air and climate pollution from cars, trucks, and locomotives. This includes updates to the CARB's Advanced Clean Cars Rule, which is coming up next year, as well as advocating for an indirect source rule for the San Pedro Bay ports in the Southern California region. As we are all well aware that there is a large backlog of ships in the ports in the San Pedro Bay Harbor, and we've actually seen a 20 tons per day increase in ozone forming or smog forming NOx emissions, oxides of nitrogen, as well as a 0.5 increase in diesel particulate matter, which is tons per day, I should say, of 0.5 tons per day increase in diesel particulate matter, which is a known carcinogen. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. We've are continuing on and aren't quite taking a break, but certainly looking forward to working with all of our partners, working with all of you in continuing the fight for clean air. Right. I think those are our updates.
Ryan?
So thank you to the panel. I really appreciate this. Prior to coming to the Coalition for Clean Air, I had the unique pleasure of working for the Counselor for Watershed Health, and it is really amazing to just hear this intersection. I've been doing all the back and forth on the comments. So thank you all for being a part of this. As we mentioned, tomorrow is Giving Tuesday. And so, I know all of you have, I'm sure, your favorite charities that you give to, but, here at the Coalition for Clean Air, we've been at this since 1951. And as Chris and several of our staff like to say, our air here in Los Angeles is so dirty, it's illegal. So we're trying to change that. And in fact, we also like to say we'd love to be out of business someday, but sadly, we're still in business. So if you can, please donate going into Giving Tuesday at ccair.org/Tuesday. And I saw that a couple of folks had already donated. Thank you, Geraldine. Thank you, Bill. Really appreciate that. And so, please think of us. Again, we'll be join us next week. We'll be doing Greening the Supply Chain Part 2, following up from a really popular event. This time we're going to focus on Ventura County specifically. Certainly there's some intersectionality there. And then we'll be doing a webinar on vapor intrusion, and not to be outdone, on February 23rd, if you are in Sacramento, please mark your calendar. It will be our annual Toast to Clearing the Air. I'm doing this in person. So it's always a packed house, and I guarantee, another really interesting discussion. So thank you all. Again, ccair.org/donate. It's Giving Tuesday. Please give of yourself, and thanks again for joining us.
Brian meant to say the Toast to Cleaning the Air event on February 23rd is in person, COVID variants notwithstanding. I did miss Santa Clara Valley Water Director Linda Lazat. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for attending, everyone. And if you're going to do something today, please do something for clean air. May every breath you take be a breath of clean air. Until next time, thank you. Bye.